All right, welcome back to another recording of Elevate Your Brand. I am Chris Anderson, your host, and today we are going to be diving in to the topic of unhustling. So you might be wearing a lot of hats right now as you're bootstrapping your business and trying to figure it all out: family, 9 to 5, entrepreneur journey, and it might just seem really overwhelming, and you don't know how to balance it on. So today we're gonna remedy a lot of that, hopefully, through our conversation with our guest, Milena Regos. She is on the show. She is a world-renowned coach, entrepreneur, businesswoman who has been presented and featured in many different platforms: NPR, CNN Business, Wisdom 2.0, and many others. Entrepreneur, created Unhustle, a new way of living. And we're going to talk about her live, work, play design and how we can, find a little bit more balance in our lives with everything we have going on. So, Milena, thank you so much for being on Elevate Your Brand today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. And by the way, if you have anyone listening right now who's an entrepreneur bootstrapping and working 9 to 5, like you said, I'd like to talk to them. I think they should take this place of mine and they can teach us how to hustle because, bootstrapping your business is definitely not a 9 to 5 kind of job.
Yeah, and so many people are trying to, build something on the side while they're, going to work, doing the 9 to 5 job plus having a family. And so I'm excited to dive into just your journey, what you have learned along the way and what you share with others. But, first, kind of what got you to start Unhustle?
What got me to start on hustle is exactly trying to figure out, as a entrepreneur, how do I do it all without sacrificing everything else, without sacrificing my marriage and my family and my health, and how do I build a sustainable success without giving up my life, really, because I wanted to still have a life and still do what I want to do with, which is what I love doing, but it just wasn't sustainable. It was absolutely not sustainable. And I had to figure out a different way of going about it. And that's what led to Unhustle.
Yeah, I think it's so true. And you hear, or we've heard, at least I did when I started, you have to sacrifice everything and you have to go on, which I think to an extent you do. But I think if you can learn kind of like with what you teach and how you share, I think there is some harmony that we can get, and still be able to go all in with our entrepreneurial venture, but still not sacrifice, our family and our well-being. With you, when you started on Hustle, did you notice or do you remember any specific obstacles that you came across that you had to overcome as you're building this successful venture?
Yeah, great question, Chris. So obstacles. So all right, let's define hustling a little bit, just
Mm,
for purposes here of understanding what we're dealing with. So there's hustle culture, right? This whole hustle and grind mentality, which we hear about in the media and business leaders and all these people saying you have to work really hard, you have to struggle, grind, war, tears, forcing. All of this is ingrained in us. It has been ingrained in us for years. So we have that going on, especially in the entrepreneurial world. That's very, very prominent. Unless
mhm.
you're burning the midnight oil, you ain't gonna make it. And
Yeah.
then we have the internal hustle and pressure that we all put on ourselves. And that could be an entrepreneur, it could be even somebody in corporate that is like, okay, I wanna I'm ambitious. I want to achieve. I get that high I get from achievement. It feels good. I love what I'm doing. I'm in it. It's amazing. So there are two different forces. One's the external, one's the internal. The internal one is hard to overcome. So
Mm,
hard. And so to your question, what's the biggest obstacle? That's the internal one. Because even if you you separate yourself from the environment, you still gonna have that internal voice. It's still gonna be the
mhm.
internal hustle that is pushing you to wake up and open your computer first thing in the morning. It's pushing you to, still be checking emails on the weekends. It's pushing you to be always on your phone, to do one more thing, to fit one more meeting, to get one more deal in, right? Because it feels good, right? It's a
Yeah.
high. It puts you in the zone. So that's a hard thing to overcome. But knowing that, stepping away from it and knowing when to do the right activity in the right time can make you even more impactful, more productive, more creative, is the way to do that, especially for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, because that internal voice of just go, go, go is something, I still have to, keep myself in check with, because I just, I find it fun, but I can definitely go too hard for too long and, overstretch your body. So you get sick, or you just get worn down, or whatever it is. So you have to, again, have these balances in place that Alina is talking about. And like with that, what are some, you mentioned you have to kind of know how to do that. So where can people start when they're realizing that internal voice and to build those good habits?
I think you just nailed it. I think realizing that internal voice, starts with self-awareness, right? It's having the awareness. Where is this pressure coming from? I mean, you can push it. I mean, not to sound too woo-woo, but there's even such things as human design, which is based on a combination of astrology and all these other external forces in the universe that would determine whether you have this genetically or not. So some people are perfectly happy, sitting on the couch watching TV. And by the way, when I talk about unhustling, that's not what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Let's not confuse unhustling with laziness and apathy. Unhustling is more about using harmony and balance and flow to get to the things you want to get, so that things become effortless and easy and harmonious, instead of constantly working with the energy of forcing and struggling and sacrificing. So again, not to sound too woo about it, I don't know if you're familiar with Wu Wei, which is kind of the effortless way of achieving things without necessarily pushing and forcing things. It's more about being able to downregulate your stress, your nervous system, being aware of your emotions, being able to jump back, with resiliency, understanding that time off is actually beneficial for your creativity and productivity, and understanding the science behind it. So back to your question, where do people start? The first thing people can do is being more in tune, having that awareness. And that starts with actually having a little bit of time off, having a little bit of quiet time, whether that's on a 5 minutes each day. I mean, we are so conditioned and pre-programmed to be constantly doing something. So even 5 minutes, you don't even have to meditate. Just having 5 minutes in the morning to yourself, whether that's a little bit of journaling or just sitting with your coffee, just having that little bit of silence. You can check in with yourself. You can kind of step back and look at the big picture. You can figure out what are your priorities for the day. Are you fitting everything that's important for you in your day? I have this on Hustle Morning rituals that I've incorporated in my days, and they're just simple practices that everybody can customize for their own day, so that you can elevate your energy, and you can start your day feeling good with a little bit of space, being able to breathe, so that you can put your head down, do your sprints, and get a lot of work done in less time, which is the science behind flow state, which is what one of the things on Hustle taps into.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like getting in that flow state and just being really productive is so crucial. So I'm curious. Okay, so have you ever heard of Alex Hormozy by chance?
No, I don't think
Okay,
so.
so he's just a creator on social media, helps businesses grow. But so his one thing, and why I asked that is, his thing is he gets up first thing in the morning. He'll have a cup of coffee, but he'll go straight into work. And that'll be the first thing he does. So is that cup of coffee, making that cup of coffee and taking it to your desk, is that enough to get and have the unhustle mentality and getting into work right away? Is that okay? Is it depend on the person, or?
It's totally okay. Totally okay. I mean, depending on the person, but it's totally okay. You have a creative period, you're still in that kind of brainwave, the right brainwave for creativity. I think that's totally okay. And spending, 60 to 90 minutes first thing when you wake up is great. And then having that break to do your exercise and do whatever you want to do. That being said, I think it's so everybody's different. You could be a morning person, evening person. you may need the exercise, or you may need to kind of meditate before you get to work. It just depends on what's going on. And so I'm
Yeah.
not one for routines. I'm more one for fluidity in your
Mm.
day, and using your mind, checking in with your mind, with your body, with like, how are you feeling? Do you need a hardcore workout, or do you just need to sit on the couch and meditate?
I
But
think that,
having that space,
yeah.
whether it's your space in the morning to create and have that first session of creativity out of the way before things get jumbo mumbo, whether it's listening to what your mind and body needs, I think it's giving yourself the freedom and the permission
hmm
to go through your day with more ease, and being in tune with your own biorhythms.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because, and I asked that just for that kind of hopeful response, because when I started, like, I was hearing everyone say, okay, you need to do in the morning, workout, meditate, read, do all this, and then get into work. And I started listening to Alex, and he's like, yeah, I get up, I get my coffee, I go straight to my desk, and I work until, he said he gets to like 4:30, between 4 and 6 every day, just whenever he wakes up, gets his coffee, goes, works, and he works until noon. And then he'll take a couple hours for calls, and then the rest of the day is he'll work out, he'll spend time with friends and family. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, so I just had a 1-year-old, or he just turned 1, and I was like, if I tried to frame my mornings like I used to, with
Right.
everything, meditate, work out in the morning, by the time I'm done with that, he's probably about to wake up, and then I lose, then it's just back and forth with him, and then working, where I just got straight up and worked. Then he woke up, and when he napped, I could do other little things. Like being able to, I guess, shift that is what I'm meaning, and it doesn't have to be structured like you said. It is such a relief, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we just follow so many trends and what other people say we should be doing, and we need to stop doing that. We need to listen to our own biorhythms, our own family
Yeah.
situations, and just being easier on ourselves. And that
Mhm.
comes down to like this compassion and love, and self-acceptance. You in why would you compare your situation to somebody else's situation? What works
Yeah.
for you may not work for me. So yeah, give yourself the freedom and the flexibility to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Again, it comes down
Mhm.
to right activity, right at the right time. So why are we so strict to ourselves? We're adding
Mhm.
all this pressure and stress on ourselves because we think we need to fit in some mold and model. I mean, I started yesterday morning. I started with learning how to wing foil behind a boat, and then it was 10 o'clock, and I was going, okay, maybe it's time to get to work. But it just depends on the priorities for that day. Would I do this
Mhm.
every morning? No, right? So it just being able to fit in some kind of self-care and well-being practices in your busy day and your family
Yeah.
time, and still do the work you want to do. That's
Yeah,
the
I think
unhustle
it's
way.
kind of reminds me of like the Bruce Lee quote where he says, like, be like water, be
That's
able to
exactly the Wu
flow
way.
and
Hmm.
meander and things
Hmm.
like that, because water can do so much when it can flow like that. And I think if we can do that with our days, and find what fits our schedule and our lifestyle best, but still giving adequate time to what needs to be done to grow our businesses or our dreams and goals and things. I think that, yeah, I think it, like you said, it kind of frees up that less strictness and less kind of weight on us to do things perfect or like everyone else.
Yeah, and this is exactly kind of the lost art of true relaxation,
Mm,
when you can really relax. But we're so stressed out and burned out, and go all the time, that
mhm.
we've lost that ability. And when I say true relaxation, that doesn't mean sitting on the couch watching Netflix, right? That means being able to relax your mind, relax your body to a point where then you can get into that flow state. Because
Yeah.
if you're in a flow state, you can be 500 times more productive than if you're not in a flow state. But we
Yep.
don't allow ourselves to even get there. So that first session that he's talking about in the morning, super creative. I do my most creative, wonderful work first thing in the morning before I look at emails, social media, any of it. And after that, I just do a little bit of work with some breaks in between. But we gotta give ourselves the freedom and the permission to do that.
Yeah. And I think once you can do that, I think it changes so much. And like what you've been saying a lot is listen to your body, like listen to your mind, like what's it telling you. It's so spot on too, because like I've gotten better at doing that along my journey, and being able to tell when I call it being overstimulated, and I might be using the right word, I might not, but like just so many things going on all at once. You know, we have animals in the house, we have now a baby, and you know, then business and people calling, and like getting to the point where it's like, okay, I know I'm listening to my body. I need to just, when I get a second, just go take a walk outside, leave everything inside, and just kind of unplug from everything and just be basically, and being able to, and that was a huge step for me, is hearing myself, hey, you're real strung out here, man. You're getting all wound up. You need to take a break and just take a second. Otherwise you're just going to keep going down that spiral of just overstimulated negativity.
Yeah, exactly. And so force comes from the head, right? Forcing it comes from the mind, comes from the head. Inner strength, pure inner strength and energy comes from your lower belly. So yeah, when you go outside and you get out in nature and you can kind of clear your mind and don't bring your phone with you, or listen to podcasts, listen to more information. That's just a lot of, we were processing so much information that we just don't have time to hear our own thoughts, right? And so, and then you get completely anxious and there's so much to do, and you don't even have the ability to prioritize. But in reality, you can probably cut out, I'm not talking about cutting out your family or your dogs or your baby out of your life. But when it comes to work, as entrepreneurs, we wear so many different hats and we think we have to do it all. And we get bogged down with a lot of things. In reality, we could give somebody else to do, or delegate, or outsource, or don't even do, and without and that won't even make a dent on our bottom line, right? But having that ability to step back and say, okay, what's really important? What's the absolute work that I have to do that no one else can do, and not get bogged down in the weeds, so you can build a business. And talking about life, work, play by design, this is how you start to build a framework around the life you want to live, the business you want to run that gives you joy and fulfillment and purpose and provides for your lifestyle. And when we're talking about playtime, that component in there is so important to understand for people, that the right leisure activity can actually help you mentally detach from work. And a lot of us are missing that.
Yeah.
So
how do we go about finding that?
Yeah. So to give you an example, I came down to, when I was really hustling, burnout, entrepreneur, I went to Baja California cert, and I decided to learn to kiteboard. And prior to that, I was doing yoga and I was meditating and I was doing all these things, but I was always in my head, always thinking about work, even though you're not supposed to think about work
right.
as you're meditating, but that takes years of experience. So I thought I was meditating, but still thinking about work. But when I came down to learn to kiteboard, all of a sudden I have this activity that requires 100% of my focus. I have to be fully there, fully focused. And so this is also a flow state thing outside of working. So things that can put you in a flow state, things like surfing and mountain biking and skiing and wing foiling, kite surfing, they don't always have to be challenging. It could be something like gardening and playing chess, reading a book. There are activities that fully engage your attention so that you forget about work and you can come back refreshed and rejuvenated. That's a key missing ingredient that we're, especially entrepreneurs, we're missing. So we go from working to, I'm going to hit the gym and I'm going to work out because I know it's good for me and I want to, take care of my health. But you're on the treadmill listening to a podcast or thinking about your next project. That is not exactly. I know, I've been there. That is not helping. That's not helping because you're still at work. So even if you're saying, I'm only putting in 10 hours of work. No, you're putting in, 18 hours of work. And sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night still thinking about work. So it's probably even more than that. Right. So you need to find things to do that are the opposite of what you're doing at work. So if you're doing something that's very analytical, you want to do something more creative. I'm learning to play the ukulele right now. I don't have a ear for music, but it's fun. It's doing something completely different. And it just feels so good to not think about work all the time.
Yeah.
So that's that last component in life, work, play by design. So you can build that high flow living and working in flow drives more flow, so you can move from one activity to the other where you're fully present. You can call it mindfulness, you can call it being fully present, but you're not distracted. We spend 47% of our time in our minds being distracted, which lowers your well-being. 47% of our time we're in our minds constantly thinking, ruminating, thinking about things. We're not fully present. And so that's the idea behind how can you bring more awareness and more presence in your days so that you can increase your well-being. Be there when it's your time off. You can be fully there with your family, with the fun things that you want to do. And then when you're at work, you can still be fully focused and fully there and get your work done and get out to play.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you on that. Do you see like the landscape of the 9 to 5 or business ownership, the structure of all that changing at all in the future with, you going at,
yeah, totally. For a few reasons. The pandemic changed a lot of things. Now I went working remotely years before the pandemic, but people realized that they really value their flexibility and autonomy, and they're happier when they have more flexibility, especially for young parents. Like, you want to be able to be there for your family, and then you don't mind doing some work later on. With the ability to do things remotely, everything is possible these days, right? Well, not for everybody, but for the people that it is possible. And then 2, people are different. They have different biorhythms. So I don't know if you're familiar with chronotypes, but basically, you could be an evening person, or you can be a morning person. Right? Your friend who gets up in the morning, grabs a cup of coffee and gets to work, he's obviously a morning person. Some people have that same productivity and creativity in the evening. So why would we not allow the full potential of people be there for our work, when in reality it will elevate the performance of the business if we allow for more flexibility and autonomy? So I know there's a little bit of pushback, especially from some business owners. But I do think that the way of the future is now, and the way of the future is that people want to have their freedom and autonomy, and they still want to produce, they still want to be a valuable employee. But currently, only about 18% of employees are engaged with work, which is really sad. We need to reverse these statistics, right? And so if you want to hire top talent, then allowing people the flexibility and the autonomy and the freedom to do the work they want to do when they can do it, and holding them to output instead of to number of hours or when these hours are, right? I mean, I had to do this years ago, especially because I had a young team on my end, and I was fighting it too as a business owner. I was fighting it, but people would go, "But I'm the most productive at 2 a.m. in the morning." And I had to give in and just test it out.
Yeah. And that's the cool, I think we're heading to really neat opportunity in business, in corporate America, in corporate, in the world. I think of Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. Could that be something that, like, even here in the States, like, could we get to like a 4-day work week? Like, I don't know, just the landscape. It'll be interesting to see all the changes that do come forth. Because if we can get in, to say to your job, if you have a 9 to 5 and you go in and you work for 4 straight hours and just work, and then you're done, like, how much time you'd have outside of that for your family or hobbies. Think how much happier people could be.
Well, look, so the 4-day work week, that's already in action, right? And a lot of, whole countries are going on a 4-day work week, showing that productivity remains the same or increases, well-being increases, work-life balance is better, people are happier.
Yeah.
The ideal, I want to say it's Denmark, one of the happiest countries in the world. They're on a 38-hour work week, and even cutting off just an hour or two off of a 40-hour work week can increase happiness and engagement and performance by a lot. So the studies are there. The companies that are experimenting with it are saying this is great. Very few are going back to a 5-day. It allows the business to increase performance. It allows people to increase their well-being and health and happiness and mental health and all these things that we're in crisis at the moment. So yeah, we're really stuck in an outdated way of thinking, and that's why I'm trying with Hustle to inspire people to rebel, to live and work well, because what we're doing is A, not sustainable, and B, not smart. And so the way of the future really is to say it's doable. We saw it's doable with the pandemic. So now it's a question of let's not go back to an outdated way of working and living.
Yeah. I think hopefully we'll see more of the hybrid model, where we'd like you to come in, maybe 1 day a week or 2 days a week for meetings and things like that to still have that face-to-face connection and everything. But, yeah, it just get your stuff done. Basically, yeah, this is what we need done. Get it done as fast as you can get it done to the highest ability. And, it doesn't matter how long it takes you or how low amount of hours you work on it. As long as it's to our standards, it could take you 3 hours and you got done and you're gonna be a lot happier and you could even do, more for us. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting shift for sure as we continue to grow in that area.
Yeah, I mean, there's a study that shows we are productive for about 3 hours out of the day, and the rest of the time is spent with emails and shuffling paperwork and kind of busy work. So it comes down to, again, priorities and that deep focus work without distractions. We're just really bad at distractions. We get interrupted every 11 minutes out of the day, and then it takes you like 23 minutes to get back into what you were doing. So we're constantly behind, and it's that flow state we're seeking, right? So you can do that deep creative productive work. But office environments, I think, are great for idea generations, for the relationship buildings, for having some meetings in person. And I think they're horrible for actually working because people interrupt each other and there's constantly ping pong of interruptions going back and forth. So to your point, hybrid is a great setup. I don't know how that's done necessarily in the business world with office space, but that's going to be the way of the future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lena, this has been a great episode. I've really appreciated you being on here, sharing all this. What would you like to leave the audience with, going out before you share where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm working on my book. I'm really excited. I want to get some beta readers in it. So if you want to start learning the philosophy of Unhustle, I'd love to get some people to get to the book before everybody else, so they can grab this or join me at unhustle.com/book, and they'll get a first edition of the Unhustle book. So that's kind of exciting for me.
Yeah.
I also have a podcast, which is the Unhustle podcast, so they can tune into that. In terms of helping people out with that life, work, play design framework, I have a free interactive exercise on my website that will take them through a process. It takes about 10 minutes. And if you can dedicate 10 minutes of your life to design your ideal kind of life, work, and play balance, then you can do this. It's right on the homepage at unhustle.com.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll have all those links in the show notes below. Guys, definitely make sure you get connected with Melina and everything she's putting out there to help you unhustle and just find that balance and harmony in your life. And so again, Melina, thanks so much for being on Elevate Your Brand today.
Thank you so much for having me.